I love you, but I cannot carry someone this sick for the long haul, he texted me while I was curled on the bathroom floor, cheek cold against the tile, chemo burning through my veins. There it was, the softest guillotine. The part no one tells you, when the blade drops, everything goes quiet. We had a wedding date, a set of blueprints for a forever house, and 2 kids learning to say step-siblings. Spoiler, I did not crawl back. I pulled a thread that unraveled his perfect plan and watched him move into a guest room with a twin bed and a flickering ceiling fan. And yes, I got the last word, delivered with the same text he sent me. Me, female, 37 years old. Him, male, 41 years old. My fiancé, a project manager who loved spreadsheets and rules. 1 daughter for him, 10 years old. 1 son for me, 15 years old. He had early signs of a neurological disease. He told me his left hand sometimes missed the doorknob, his calves cramped after runs. I had a tumor in my stomach that laughed at smoothies and kale. Our plan: sell his narrow, steep townhouse in Seattle's Queen Anne, sell my cozy Beacon Hill condo, and build an ADA-friendly place out near Shoreline. Think polished concrete, wider hallways, 0 threshold showers. I was already doing the work through my side design and renovation business, permits in my name, invoices filed, paper crisp as new money. When the diagnosis hit, my days became hydrating and counting down to the next infusion. He was, at first, gentle. He prepped bone broth, labeled containers in neat blue Sharpie. Tuesday, 4 p.m. The house smelled like ginger tea and rubbing alcohol. But as my energy drained, so did his patience. He started missing chemo days. He said work was intense, that his balance was off, that driving me was not safe. Meanwhile, I handled my son's algebra homework, my own closing statements, and his architect's endless emails. The night I texted, "Maybe let us list 1 house now and move in together until we build," he replied with a thumbs up. 3 days later, silence. 4 days later, that text: clean, efficient, devastating. Love isn't a hospital. That is what I heard between the words. My reply was a screenshot of my upcoming infusion, nothing else. The cursor blinked like an EKG. Do you think my reaction was justified? I boxed his hoodies, his coffee grinder that sounded like a jet, the dogfish head bottle opener he insisted was lucky. I drove them to his townhouse on a wet Sunday. The rain had that metallic Seattle smell, like pennies and pine. His back door had a narrow overhang where he kept a stack of moving blankets. I was going to leave the boxes on a note. Then I saw it. Through the back window, lamplight spilling gold over hardwood, the 2 of them on his gray sofa. Her hair was in a messy bun, the kind you wear when you plan to stay. Paige, the lifelong friend. He had introduced her as his physical therapist buddy from the gym, the one who taught foam rolling classes, the one with a steady boyfriend we double dated with at a Thai place in Capitol Hill. I had clinked glasses with her. I had borrowed a hair tie from her at Green Lake when a headwind turned my ponytail into a flag. He had told my son, "Miss Paige is like my sister." I stood outside in the rain with a box against my hip and watched their heads tip together like magnets. Every time a car hissed by, the streetlights sliced across their faces, and I saw a version of the future I had been building for them. I did not knock. I slid the boxes back into my trunk, closed it softly, and drove home, past a bakery that smelled like butter and sugar. My best friend Tasha called while I was stopped at a light on Rainier. "You okay?" she asked. I told her I was fine. She said, "You do not sound fine." I said I would be. That night, the rain settled into a whisper against my windows. My son, Leo, knocked and placed a mug of chamomile on my nightstand. "You sleeping?" he asked. "Soon," I lied. I lay there counting his breaths through the door until he went back to bed. He didn't cheat. He premeditated. I whispered it into the dark just to see if it sounded true. Is it worse if the cheating is with someone close? Chemo scrubs your calendar for you. You live in 90-minute increments, infusion time, nap time, the 10 minutes you can taste anything. Somewhere in month 2, while clearing a stack of manila folders, I found the file, tabbed Hearth Project, Townhome Prep. Inside, 8 invoices addressed to his LLC, stamped net due on sale, signed by both of us with a cheap black pen I remembered buying at a gas station when we'd run out during walkthroughs. The total, $31,000 and change. Lien language attached, notarized. Interest terms spelled out in 14-point font because I am not stupid. I am not a monster either. I stared at the numbers until the room tilted. I thought about his daughter's papier-mâché volcano that had erupted pink baking soda on my countertop. I thought about the neurologist's pamphlet I had hidden in my sock drawer, symptoms, stages, rails to install. I thought about how love is not a ledger, but every kindness had turned into an entry. I called my brother Marco, a paralegal who speaks fluent state of Washington. He said, "Do not do anything while mad." I said, "I am not mad." He said, "You sound like a tea kettle." 2 weeks later, body lighter because chemo had stolen my appetite, mind sharp because chemo had burned the hesitation out of me, I called my attorney. In the background of the conference room, someone's lunch smelled like microwaved salmon. We filed to perfect the lien and to notice his agent of record. Timing is everything. His listing had gone live that morning. The photos were pretty in that sterile way. White orchid, gray throw blanket, a bowl of green apples that looked plastic. My attorney slid a copy of the email across the table. "You sure?" he asked. I stared at the subject line, "Notice of claim of lien, 19 months past due." "I'm sure," I said, and took a sip of water that tasted faintly of copper. I did not tell Tasha for a week. When I did, she exhaled like a tire losing air. "Girl," she said, "this is surgical." I said, "I left the scalpel where he put it." The fallout was immediate and slow, both. His real estate agent left voicemails that sounded like a yoga instructor trying to calm a room. "We would love to resolve this amicably." His tone had the bright edge of a knife. My attorney replied with numbers. With my chemo rounds scheduled for Mondays, my Thursdays became document day. Interest accruals, email threads, screenshots of signed pages with coffee stains in the margins. 2 months in, my hair was mostly gone, and my eyebrows looked like someone had breathed on a charcoal sketch and smeared it. Leo shaved his head to match me and played it off like a dare from his friends. Tasha started leaving fresh lemons on my porch because she said lemon water turns your blood into armor. At night, I heard geese migrating south, honking somewhere above the cloud ceiling. 8 months after that first text, I was in line at the pharmacy when Paige's ex, Dylan, the man who used to order lemongrass beef and crack jokes about portion sizes, tapped my shoulder. He looked thinner, new beard. "We split," he said. I nodded. He glanced at the floor tiles, scuffed and beige. "He told me he's been with her since you two were picking backsplash tile," he said. "I thought you should know." It was already a tattoo on my brain, but hearing it sent a strange calm through me, like someone had finally shut off a faucet. I stepped outside. The air smelled like wet asphalt and coffee from the cafe next door. A bus whooshed past, and my scarf flapped against my neck. Do you think betrayal reveals true character? My phone buzzed. My attorney reporting the sale had closed under our conditions. After mortgage, after realtor fees, after past due invoices, after attorney fees, he would put $10,000 into his account. The house he had under contract fell through. His agent wrote, "We will regroup." I took a breath so deep it scraped the inside of my ribs. Karma doesn't knock, it changes the locks. I expected rage. Instead, he called me with the voice he used when telling his daughter to use her inside voice. "That was petty," he said. I had just set a pot of jasmine rice on the stove. The steam fogged my glasses. "It was a contract," I said, stirring with the wooden spoon Leo had burned a smiley face into. He called it petty again. I said, "If honoring signatures is petty, then we are both pen thieves." He hung up. The rice hissed. His life contracted like a pupil in bright sun. He moved into his sister's split level in Linwood, guest room painted mint, twin bed like a shrug, ceiling fan that ticked when it turned. He quit his job, then said he was between engagements. The neurological symptoms progressed. His left foot dragged when he got tired. His daughter stopped coming to our house on Fridays because visits reminded her that grown-ups break their promises. And my life? It shrank first, then widened unexpectedly. Chemo burned a canyon through my days, and then, miracle of miracles, it ended. I rang the bell. Metallic clang, nurses cheering, lemon Lysol in the air. The next scan was clean. The one after that was clean. The peach fuzz on my scalp came back the color of sun-bleached rope. On the day my oncologist used the words cancer-free, Leo and I sat on the hood of my Prius with greasy fingers from a bag of drive-through fries. We watched planes stitch white threads across a summer blue sky. Months later, I ran into him at a hardware store near Northgate. He wore braces on his wrists. A pharmacist had once told me the brand by smell alone, industrial neoprene. He looked older by a decade, still handsome, just smudged. We talked for 3 minutes about weather and handrails. He asked about my health. I told him the truth. His eyes went watery, mine did not. I put a pack of felt furniture pads in my basket and let him limp toward the lighting aisle. I stood there listening to the radio crackle over the store speakers about a sale on patio umbrellas. Sometimes, the universe is not poetic. It is fluorescent. The texts began after that. First his sister, which I ignored, then his daughter, which I did not. She asked to grab ice cream with Leo at full tilt. I said yes. They played pinball, neon reflecting off their faces, the machine chiming like a nickel carnival. She told me she was sorry for how adults act. I told her adults are just kids who learn to drive. She laughed, then asked, "Can we still hang out sometimes?" I said yes, when it is not complicated. A week later, he texted. He wrote paragraphs that read like the inside of a Hallmark card. He apologized and did that thing where you rearrange words until you have built a sorry you can live with. He said he missed us. He said our house plans were still in a folder on his desktop called hearth.heirloom. He asked if we could reset. I read it in the grocery store while smelling cantaloupes. My stomach did not drop. My hands did not shake. It felt like reading about someone else's vacation plans. He texted again late at night. Could you ever see us again? The glow from the screen lit my ceiling like a far-off storm. I typed and erased 3 replies. I fell asleep with the phone face down, the house smelling faintly like the pizza Leo had reheated and forgot to cover. In the morning, Tasha slid into the kitchen in fuzzy socks and said, "What is with the cryptic thumb typing at midnight?" I handed her the phone. She read and made a face like she had bitten a lemon. "Girl," she said, "compose something surgical." Is revenge ever worth the risk? I asked myself as I cracked eggs into a bowl and heard the shells tap like ceramic. Then I remembered the boxes on the back porch, the way his lamp warmed Paige's bare shoulder. The answer stood up inside me like a spine. I texted, I cannot see myself taking care of someone this sick in the long term. I edited out the smiley face my phone kept adding. My thumb hovered, then I hit send. I watched the tiny gray dots appear, disappear, appear. He replied, "That is petty." There it was again, his favorite word for anything that cost him. I set the phone on the counter. The granite felt cool. I poured coffee, the smell rich and bitter like chocolate pretending to be useful. When I picked the phone back up, I added, "Remember the box on your back porch? ... Did you think Paige carried that over from my house? ... Nothing. Silence rolled in like fog. Somewhere outside, a garbage truck clanked, and the dog across the street barked at it like the world was ending. My heart did not pound. My hands did not shake. I looked at the photos magnetized to my fridge, the Polaroid of Leo and me wearing paper crowns at a Chinese restaurant, Tasha holding a sparkler over my head on New Year's, the architect's early sketch of a hallway wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side, even on bad days. The house we eventually built was not exactly ADA, but the bones are accessible. Wide doors, slick polished concrete floors that are cool under bare feet, a roll-in shower my dad jokes is nicer than any spa. I kept the details that help everyone: radius turns, lever handles. I left the ramps and special cabinetry for whoever might need them later. Tasha leaned on the island chewing a piece of toast. "What did he say?" she asked. "He called me petty and then went silent." She nodded. "Silence is loud when you earned it," she said. We both laughed. Then the toaster popped, startling us both, scattering tiny crumbs that smelled like heat. He sent 3 more texts over the next month. Each one was a tug on a rope I had already let go. I replied to the last one with a single word: goodbye. After that, quiet. Occasionally, I'd see Paige jogging around Green Lake, hair ponytailed, earbuds in. She looked over once, twice, then looked away hard enough to trip. I did not wish her harm. I did not wish her anything. In quieter hours, with the hum of the fridge and the soft whoosh of heat from the vent, guilt had it around my house like a cat. It would rub against my ankles, then dash under the couch. Was it revenge or just accounting? Marco said the law calls it remedy. Tasha called it a refund from the universe. Leo, 16 by then, and suddenly taller than me, said, "Mom, you kept receipts." He meant paper, but he also meant story. Would you forgive if they admitted everything? I sometimes ask myself in the shower when the tiles fog and the world feels like it is made of steam. I suspect I would forgive faster than I think, but I do not confuse forgiveness with return. The day we took a sledgehammer to the wall that separated the kitchen from the living room, dust bloomed everywhere, tasting like chalk and old paint. I sneezed and laughed and sneezed again. Tasha filmed the whole thing on her phone, narrating like a nature documentary. "Observe, the single woman in her habitat, eliminating obstacles," she whispered, and we both cackled. If you were me, would you do the same? I check on myself the way I used to check on him. I sit on the back steps at night with a blanket and listen to the freight trains groan through Soto. The smell of damp cedar drifts up from the fence. I think about vows and paper and how a person can be tender and cruel in the same breath. I do not need a judge or a jury. I need quiet. I open my phone, scroll to the architect folder, and stare at a favorite image. Sunlight pouring down a hallway wide enough for a wheelchair, a skateboard, or a kid running. Space for all of it. We are not together. That is the simplest way to say it. We did not marry, we did not build the house together, we did not fold each other's laundry by the glow of late-night television. But I kept the good bones. I built a version of those plans with my own hands and a crew that learned to read my raised eyebrow. The polished concrete floors are cool in August and warm in January when the sun drops through the big south-facing window. The doors are wide, my dad's walker fits, just in case. I planted a Japanese maple in the front yard and set a bench under it. The first fall, the leaves turned red like lit coals, and the wind sounded like someone sifting sugar. His daughter texted me a photo the day she got her driver's license. I sent back a string of celebratory emojis and a request to drive carefully. She asked if she could still invite Leo to her graduation next spring. I said yes, and meant it. Tasha says that makes me a saint. It does not. It makes me someone who recognizes that kids are the innocent collateral in adult wars. The story lives in my body like a scar I forget about until it catches the light. Sometimes when my phone buzzes with unknown numbers, I still feel the old fear. Most days, I do not. Most days smell like coffee and cut grass. Most nights taste like the salt of popcorn and the tartness of lime. When guilt paws at me, I let it sit on my lap for a minute, then I stand up and let it slide off. He once said I was too intense about details. Maybe, but the screws holding my cabinet poles are tight, and my invoices are signed, and my heart keeps good records. One last thing. His last text to me, after my final message, was just 3 words. "You win. Congratulations." I did not reply. It was not a game. It was my life. And when I finally exhaled, a sound came out that was not a laugh and not a sob, somewhere between. And that is when I realized he never planned to love me, only to be loved.